Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Self-Taught. I am your host Becky Onyango, and I'm very happy that you took your time to tune in today. And without going any further, if you like the content so far, you can just go ahead, give this video a thumbs up, and then also subscribe to the channel in order for me to share more information, as well as comment and share the video as much as you can. So without further ado, we'll get right into it. So the topic for today would essentially be how to get a German driving license, also known as a Führerschein. Now, of course, Germany is one of the countries with the most efficient public transportation system, especially if you're in the bigger cities like Berlin. Many options, from the trains to the buses, and also to the boats. You really might not need a car, but if you're in the smaller cities or outskirts of bigger cities, you might need a license. Now, if you are coming from another country and you already have a license from your home country, you might be given a 6-month probation period whereby you can change your home country license to a German license. And that essentially would just mean you have to, the German driving authority is able to validate your German license from back at home. You can pretty much skip some of the practical lessons that you need to do at the driving school and just fasten the process of you attaining the German license. And then it would also significantly reduce the costs that would be incurred in the training process. However, today I'm going to focus on how to get the license from scratch. Yeah. So what are some of the steps that you should consider while getting the German driving license? So the first step would be you need to register in a local driving school. It would be much more convenient to register in a school that is, the proximity to your residential area is very close, just for distance purposes. And then also you need to register in a school where you are officially, registered in the house, like the Anmeldung is, say, in Berlin. So you need to do the driving lessons in Berlin. So you cannot be registered in Berlin and then enroll in a driving school in another city like, say, Stuttgart or Frankfurt, because they're two different states and they have two different rules. So some of the documents that you would need to register in the driving school would be like your passport, your house registration details, as well as your residence permit details. And then the driving school would, sign a 1-year contract with you, and also provide the necessary materials for you to prepare for your training. Now, the next step to consider would be getting the study materials. So usually once you enroll in a driving school, then the school would be able to provide the study materials, either a book or an application. As in my case, I was provided a book, but the book was in German, so I opted to download the application that also the school was providing, and then with this they gave me an access code, and with the access code I'm able to access the study materials and just pretty much change the settings to English. So you can change the settings to your preferred language of study. Then the third step would be getting an eye test. So with this you can get it in any optical shop. Normally it would cost around €7, and best to do the eye test in the morning hours when you're just fresh from sleep, you're not so tired, as compared to doing it towards the end of the day when you're pretty much tired and your eye might be strained. But also it just depends with when is most convenient for you. Then the next step would be getting a first aid certificate. So this is something that you can just Google according to which part of Germany you are located. So just look up first aid certificate training courses, and then you'll be able to get locations where they offer this kind of courses. Usually it's like an 8-hour, a whole day course. So you get to do a lot of theory, practice, and some tests toward the end, just for you to get the certification. Now, the fifth step would be making an appointment at one of the driving authorities in the state where you are located, because they are responsible for giving you the permit to do the training for 1 year. So they'll send you a letter after the registration. So some of the documents that you might need would be like the eye test, the first aid certificate, and the contract from the driving school to show that you're a student taking up the training for that year, as well as the house registration details, as well as a small fee. So you need to make an appointment in order to go for the registration. And then also after some time, you would get an invoice from the driving testing authority. So depending on which state you are, if you're in Berlin, there are two, which is TÜV, TUV, and DEKRA. So you can choose during the time when you're enrolling with the school, you can choose whether you want to go for TÜV or DEKRA. In other states, TÜV is usually predominantly the driving test authority. So once you get the invoice from them, you need to pay for the theory test as well as the practical test. And it's good to make the payment as early as possible, because when the time comes for you to do the test, the invoice should be reflecting that you've already paid. Otherwise, you would be turned away and you'll not be able to do your test on that day, and you might need to pay again. Yeah, so do it on time. Then the eighth and final step is you need to prepare well for your driving tests, be it theory or the practical test. So for the theory test, normally the test would constitute of only 30 questions, but in the study portal, you would practice up until 1,200 questions. So you have to be, really, you need to prepare well, because the 30 questions might come from any section of those 1,200 questions. So be well prepared for that. And then also, usually on the day of the test, you would only need to arrive with your passport. And the good thing is, after you're finished with the theory test, you get your results there. And then once you submit, you click on the submit button. And then for the practical test, you can only get to do the practical test once you've passed the theory test. And with the practical test, normally you would need to arrive like at least 2 hours before, because usually the driving schools would organize the last minute or the final 1 hour or 1.5 hour practice before the actual test. So it's good to arrive on time so that your teacher can just perfect the last minute skills before you get to do your driving test. So for the driving test, normally there's an instructor from one of the driving authorities who typically would be seated behind and would be observing how you are driving, and then note down some of the mistakes that you're doing. And then at the end of the driving session, he would inform you where you need to correct yourself, and of course inform you if you've passed the test or you need to redo the test. I mean, getting a German license is not so easy, but it's not impossible as well. So I would advise, if you want to go ahead and get it done when you are psychologically, mentally ready, as well as financially ready, because it does cost a lot. Another important thing to note when it comes to doing a German driving license, in regards to the finances, as I said, you need to be financially ready. So typically the driving license would cost you an average of between 2,000 to 3,000 euro. Depends on which city you're in and how many additional classes that you would need. So if you don't get proper advice, you might end up spending more than what the average should be. For example, in my case, due to lack of proper advice, I spent up to close to over 5,000 euro. This is simply because I changed states. So I started doing my German license while I was in Stuttgart, the time when I was living in Stuttgart, and I was working in Mercedes-Benz at that time. And during that time, the only German schools that I could get were ones that the instructors could only speak in German. And being super determined, I decided to go for it, not realizing language of instruction is very important. So if the instructor cannot speak the language that you speak, you would end up spending more, because some things he would try to explain, you probably wouldn't get it. And when you go for the test, you would fail, and it's just pretty messy. So I started out Stuttgart. And when I got a different job, I had to move to Berlin. I had to drop everything and start afresh in Berlin because it's a different state. And the 1 year period was already over. So, but when I came to Berlin, I spent around 1,500 to 1,800 euro, not more than 2,000 euro. And that is what on average one should spend anyway. The most important thing is the choice of driving school. Go for a driving school that would meet your needs. If you are a foreigner and you're not so fluent in the language, go for a school that would provide it in the language that you're most get an instructor who understands your needs, one who does not harass you, just one who will go with your learning pace. So you're also free to change the teachers and the driving school as much as you can, because at the end of the day, it's your money and you need to get what is worth your money. And at the end of the day, you're the one who's going to sit for the exam and pass it or fail it. And one of the factors that you need to eliminate is maybe external factors like maybe the teacher or the driving school are not meeting your needs. So it's very important to look into this kind of factors. Okay, so if you have any questions, feel free to leave comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, take care. Bye.